All right, Joel, focus on this topic here, please.
Let's do this. Okay. Today is Thursday, October the 27th. Is it the 27th where you are, Tim?
It feels that way. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. Hey, I'm Joel. I'm joined by Tim, and Emmett is here with us also behind the scenes. Welcome, everyone. This week is another week of the weekly briefing. So this is the moment we stop for 30 minutes, or I should say 28 minutes now. And we talk about an issue, a hot topic, a trend that we find owners in the industry are talking about, or that we are spotting something that we want to share with you. And Tim, this week is, this actually came about because we were looking into the future, one of our favorite subjects in RevThink land.
Hey, Emmett, will you not share your screen anymore?
Oh yeah, thank you. But we were asking this question, like, what is it that our clients, so these are studio owners, production company owners, what are they going to need as we approach the year end? And we were sort of back timing, reverse engineering some of the things. And we said, well, you know, the end of the year, people start to reflect on what did this year mean? And what do I want next year to look like? And let's set some goals. And then we said, what are the obstacles that stop them from doing that process, or where do they get stuck? And we realized that right now people are in that midst of going into the busy season, the fourth quarter, work, go. And they're overwhelmed, and they know they should focus on something during this season, but they get stuck, like, focus on what? And then all of a sudden they're being asked, okay, and what do you want next year to look like? And they're, I don't know.
I mean, I swear I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit myself here, because there is this end of year pile on that takes place. There's just wrapping things up, and then we do our annual meetings and reports and taxes. There's just extra work. And not to mention, for most of it, it's a very busy season because all of our clients are going through that same pattern as well.
Sure.
And so the preaching I'm doing here to myself is, if you don't focus on your business, who will? How do you know you're going to achieve something different than you've already achieved? And for those of us who want to focus on growth, make a difference, not repeat mistakes and so on, we need to be able to get out of a habit. We need to be able to look at internally to say, where does our strength come from? How do we understand who we want to be? And how do I achieve that? And the irony is, it's the busy season we do that in. Like, that's when we get to practice. You could want to change everything, but if you have no clients, you're actually not going anywhere. We actually have to have instituted some thoughts in place before things get busy. So yeah, listen, all of us business owners, we all have the same problem, but it really is something that needs to change.
So I see some familiar faces here, and I'm kind of curious to hear even people respond to this and see if it's something you're also processing, that when things get busy, what are the bad habits that you fall into that you later look back and say, oh yeah, I always, or I never, and those kinds of things? Because there's definitely a way to get out of that trap. But I don't know there's something in our minds. I'm wondering, like, Tim, if I said it, why do we do that? Why do we get in these habits in the first place? And why are they so hard to break? When we're busy, we're overwhelmed, we know we should focus, but.
I often think that what got us to this point, right? So let's just say, in starting my business, I had a desire to want to change the world, or change the industry, or do something different than I previously had experience doing. And I thought business ownership is the only way to accomplish that. So I had that first vision, but then I swear, like, I became obsessed about certain things. So it really was hard work, grit, that starts my business and kicks it off. And I think that develops a bad habit in us. So that we believe, like, okay, well, hard work got me here, therefore, if I work harder, I will gain more. And that usually is where the clash comes, because how much harder can you honestly work? Is every entrepreneur here saying, well, I don't really work as hard as I could? Like, that's not true. but we still have a restriction of growth. So there is a habit that got us here that we have to break to get beyond.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. In fact, I'm kind of curious because I see Jay, I see Justin, and a couple other familiar faces dropping in. I'm curious to ask people, and I mean, just drop something in the chat. What are the things that you still do that you know, I don't know if I want to call them bad habits. Let's just say, what are the things that you still do as a business owner that you kind of know, I really shouldn't need to do this stuff. I shouldn't have to do this stuff, but I still do it. And you have some excuse, you have some reason. So I'd be curious to just hear some people drop in some notes in the chat, what those are. You're taking me back to my days, Tim, when I was running Impossible, and because remember, it was like 7 years that I wasn't doing great. Like, it was sure me and maybe one employee, but it's kind of limping along. And I remember the idea when I started to realize, wow, there are all these things that kind of made me successful, just like you said. Work really hard, charge this way, manage my time that way, do all these things. And then I kind of thought all those years, well, that kind of made me successful. So I guess I should just do more of those things. And it wasn't until I went through some coaching and got some outside perspective that somebody said, maybe you actually need to stop doing those things. But I was like, no, I need to double down on those.
Yeah, it's that's almost like where the coach comes in, right? That outside perspective that could address something you already know is true and can tell you, Joel, let's be honest, you shouldn't be doing this, right? And you're like, yeah, right. So why are you doing it? Does it make you feel good? And you would say, no, it doesn't make me feel good. It makes me stressed. So what is it that's holding you back? And there's now a block that somebody needs to help you get past and say, let's talk about what the block is. Is it that you forgot you're supposed to delegate this? Did you not understand what the solution is so that we need to put that solution in place? Are you really focused on yourself, thinking you're the only person on the planet that could solve this problem? Can we get you out of that, recognizing that there are other people that can accomplish this goal for you? So there are, the outsider can kind of like tap on that door that you could just say, yeah, to be honest, I just need help. And okay, good. As a knowledgeable outsider, somebody can come in to help you.
Well, yeah. The outsider is I'll even give one weird example of, it took me so many years before I hired an assistant. And even though I had years and years and years of people, business partner, coaches saying you should hire an assistant, or someone that's just going to play that part in your whatever the title is. And it took me years and years. And then one day I joined forces with a business partner. We had been working together maybe 6 months. And he just walked into my office one day and he was like, hey, by the way, I hired an assistant. She starts Monday morning. And he walked out of the office. And I just kind of went, oh. And what I realized was it was purely, I'll call it fear, but it was like uncertainty. It was, I know I should do these things, but if I do them, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. It's what I call if I focus on this, maybe later I'm going to regret not focusing on that. Like maybe I should do what I'm looking at the comments here. What was it? Eric. Yeah, Eric and Seth, billing, invoicing, right? And guilty, right? I was that guy for so many years. It was probably 7 or 8 years. I was the guy because, right? You sit down and you look at the invoices and you go, if I let somebody else do this, if this invoice isn't perfect, it's a big deal. This is a 6-figure number here. This has to be perfect. And that's actually true. But I convinced myself that I couldn't actually turn that into a system and a routine that I could delegate and actually have somebody do it better than I did. Better. That was for me sort of the breakthrough was, so it's not working harder, doubling down all the things that have been working. It's like flipping a switch and realizing that there's somebody that has that as their genius.
Yeah.
They're better than me.
Yeah.
I just have to set the vision, understand the system and the routine to it, and then say, okay, you're going to own that. And then I check in and make sure that you're crushing it. And of course, when you find the right person, they're doing it better than you ever did it. So they show up and they go, yeah, I did it way faster, way more accurate. Anything else you want me to do?
Because they've made a business. I mean, they made the career out of this, or business out of this, right? That's actually my response to the question about invoicing. So let's say, for example, the in the chat here, people are saying, hey, where I fall behind is invoicing and billing. And my response there was, what often, billing is actually very simple. It could be done proactively. You simply create the bills, plug them in and send them out. Think about how simple that is compared to everything else we actually do creatively. But what often holds us back is that we feel we need to justify the bill. And that justification is what creates the hesitation. And then when we hesitate, it lasts even longer. So we have to justify it even more. In reality, you can send out the bill before you earn the money. And the client can say, well, this is a little early. You say, oh, sorry, my system kicks them out. Just pay them when they're due. And now you don't have to justify it. It's just owed to you. It's simply, that's the money you owe me. I gave it to you, pay me. But there's these other languages that we speak inside of our mind and words that we put there that aren't really the reality outside of it. And it creates a very different habit. So to me, I think the focus question we're asking today is, what would you honestly recognize that because you did it, it got you here to this level of success that you now have to let go of? And that's the scary question. That's right. I'll just say, when Joel came on to RevThink, I was afraid of Joel. I was afraid, does he get it? Does he understand anything? Joel doesn't know how to do math. How can he do a factors report? And we were trying to figure out how to make Joel duplicate Tim. And that was foolish. What we really discovered was Joel has a genius. When we know what you're capable of, how you marketed, how you got your company out of Denver to compete with the marketplace of New York and Los Angeles, we knew something unique. And that everything that you've produced since then has that core genius behind it. So that idea of just, stepping out of the way and letting something happen and having confidence that you are the right person to solve the problem, but this problem you're solving is the wrong one, and you need to solve the right problem. Maybe it's delegating, or maybe I like Jay's comment here of using the Eisenhower matrix.
Yep.
Maybe it's just the idea of knowing what to let go of. Hey, to be honest, these aren't really that important. So how do I get the unimportant items off my list? In Jay's case, he's saying everything's in the important category, but there are tools out there that help you kind of focus and recognize the first thing you could possibly do is just get rid of things that you shouldn't be doing, very simply.
All right. So here's where I'm going to go right to the practical, right? Because step one, if someone's saying, okay, I'm not really sure what to focus on, where would I begin? I will say this. First of all, spend 7 or 8 years like I did sucking at that. And you get really clear about that pain point, right? When you're working all-nighters and you just realize this is all broken, this can't be the way to run a business. So first of all, get yourself to a point of misery. But then the proactive step, once you get there, is I said, I'm going to sit down and just be self-aware and inventory everything I do to run my business. Everything. And I'm chuckling because I think at the time I did that, it was 32 or 34 different things. And it included, yes, invoicing, but it also included the janitorial, cleaning up the office. It included, I don't know, posting on whatever social was in those days, which it was something else back in the 90s. But I'm laughing because a couple hours ago, I just did this workshop with my current batch of Jumpstart students, and I had them go through this exercise. And you know who won the prize? Somebody had 54 activities that they do to run their business.
Wow.
54. Now, what's interesting is think about, don't even worry about what you're focusing on. Just the fact that you have to get 54 things done. and we can all relate to that, because I'm sure everyone here is thinking, yeah, it's probably 20. Oh, wait, maybe it's 30, maybe it's 50. What was cool was I have, so Alejandro, who's a production company in Colombia, he went through Jumpstart several years ago, and he was going through the exercise again. And I said, oh, what's different this time? And he said, my list is half as long. And I said, wait a minute, that's kind of awesome. So there's just, the point of it is just be self-aware. I would say to someone, step one is just get it all down. What is it that you actually are doing with all of your time? That's the starting point, right? The first step of, what is it? Fixing a problem is recognizing you have one, something like that.
Right. Identifying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you. So an audit process, I actually have a business coach who helped me put together a tool. And this one was an understanding of, really like what gives me energy, what gives me no energy, what tasks am I good at, what tasks am I not good at. And they clearly find that quadrant of clearly no energy and not good at it. Why would I ever touch that? Right. But it's funny how many items actually fall there. Maybe because I feel inadequate, I put extra energy there instead of saying, wait, I can't do this. Like, let's just call it out. I can't do this. Someone actually has to do this because they would do it better than me. And then you have these desires, other side of the quadrant that says, hey, I actually really love doing this and I'm good at it. But sometimes I feel like, is that enough? There's got to be more than just kind of feeding myself, because I'm a leader, I'm a business owner, I'm a coach. I have to have some iron sharpens iron kind of mentality to this. So my coach has this thing in the middle of like working itself out, where it can be things where you say, I kind of want to figure this thing out. I don't mind diving into something I'm inadequate at. Maybe it's a skill I can develop. Or maybe it's something I've just started. I don't know where it belongs yet. So give yourself some grace in that middle part. But that audit process is really a great place to start. But I think
I was going to say that something I'm laughing about, because as we were going through this process today, and we, very similar to what you described, we start to categorize all of those activities. And we first of all say, well, which ingredient do these sit in? Because we're looking for that pattern, right? Am I mostly doing a bunch of sales stuff or a bunch of operations stuff or whatever? And then we start to ask something about capability level. And we're ultimately trying to get to these like 2, 3, 4 genius activities. And I know that's the big word when I say focus on your genius. I remember there was somebody that I asked, okay, now that you know that you should be focusing on this, if you had to do that, what would you do? And this person's response was, I'm going to get less sleep. Like I'm going to work on all these things that I should be focusing on, but still do everything else. And I'm going to be really practical here. And Tim, you may not agree with my advice. What I told her was, what I said was, look, we know that's not a long-term solution, but here's the thing. I give you permission to not get any sleep for the next 6 weeks in this process. However, during those 6 weeks, you only can do that if you double your rate. Because when you're doing your genius activity and you're on that internal budget thing, and your producer or whatever says, wow, this person is not $200 an hour, she's $400. You're going to watch how everything sort of shifts. And you're going to be up at 3 a.m. doing invoicing for 3 hours and saying, why did I spend $1,200 of my time doing invoicing when I can hire the most awesome badass bookkeeper for 1/10 of that or something? So we agreed, okay, deal. I'm doubling my rate for the next 6 weeks. I said, trust me, we'll figure out a way for the clients to pay that increased rate. That is an easy solve. And once you start producing great results that you are happy about and the money shows up, you're going to be like, oh, I can afford the bookkeeper. I can afford whatever that thing is, right? Because like I'm looking at the example that Justin, he just shared some of this. So I'm guessing, Justin, you can just give me a thumbs up. When you say being the voice or face of the company, that is something that you do at a really high level. It's your genius. when you do that, good things happen. So why would you not make more time, more space, delegate whatever you have to in order to let that thing shine? Because when you do that, you succeed as the entrepreneur, and your company is going to succeed because of all the things that show up. That's my theory.
Yeah, Hung Lee actually asked, well, one, you started a whole chat about how little sleep I get. So thanks, Joel, for kicking off the no sleep conversation.
Right. Yes.
But that Hung Lee actually asked the question, what is the most important task a business owner has to focus on hands-on? Like, what is the one thing that they should do? So I think Justin's response is great to that. But there is a reality of like, hey, as a business owner, you are uniquely qualified than anybody else that works for you to provide that vision, to be that voice, to be the face of the company. That's really some of the responsibility of ownership. And you can't let go of that. A lot of people that work with business owners do that because they believe in that vision. So someone has to hold that vision true and keep it going. But here's the other thing. The other thing the business owner needs to do is give that vision to other people. It has to grow others. That's a huge responsibility you have. So by not delegating and not communicating and not focusing on the company's voice, you actually are holding back a huge responsibility you have, which is passing it on and helping it grow and help other people grow along the way. So that not delegating is not just restricting your business, it's restricting the people around you that would thrive with that opportunity.
I love what you're saying there, because it rings true, not only with my experience, but when I look at all of the shops that we worked with. It's really tough when there's a solo owner who doesn't want to step into that role, play that part, I'll call it. We actually had Jordan Brady, for those of you that know him, the commercial director and podcaster, commercial directing boot camp, I think is, or FOMO school or whatever. And we talked about like your role as a director. It's like stepping into that role and playing that part, because everyone needs you and you actually love doing it. And when you're a solo business owner, if you don't step into that, Tim, how can you delegate like the vision and the why? Now, if you have partners, right, maybe one is the creative and doesn't get into that. The other guy is maybe, or the gal is the visionary that's driving that. But I will say this, it's really unusual that when people go through this exercise to figure out like what their genius is, it's really unusual that that's not one of the three, that thing that you described, because it's part of the reason they even got into business in the first place. There's this thing that has to come out of them, and you and I call it vision.
Someone often inspired you, so that's what got you into the business. So it usually is somewhat contagious that you want to inspire others. So that kind of that ability and responsibility of leadership is usually some sort of personal fulfillment as well, recognizing who you are, how you believe it should work, putting that into place, and then allowing others to thrive because you put that in place is really kind of a fulfilled calling there. This is actually a reason why I like the structure of the 7 ingredients, not just because we created it, but there's a reality of like trying to identify the 7 areas of business that you have to master. But to be able to master that means the systems and routines inside each one. So to realize there's actually like a mechanism inside of each of the areas of business you have to master as a business owner, really allows you kind of like focus. Okay, I might not really understand sales very well, but if I understand it right, there's a system and routine about sales. I can go learn that. I could hire someone to do that and I can have them execute it. I still have to oversee it, right? I can't abdicate that responsibility. But knowing there's a system and routine behind these ingredients lets you know there's ability for you to build something operationally around your business and then let other people do it that matches their skill and personal desire as well. So that kind of breaking it up into those 7 areas already gets you into an idea of like where the response can be and where the solution's going to come about as well.
You're yes, I appreciate you saying that, because I'm even curious, there's a poll that we posted in the community looking for input and so forth on confab, like what are the topics we want to cover and the speakers that we want to see and all these kinds of things. But yes, that there's a common, what do we call this, Tim? There's also a common pattern where a lot of times an owner might be really good at almost all 7 of those ingredients. Not genius, but you know the owner I'm talking about. Oh, well, she is like, knows how to do the invoicing and the billing and knows how to reboot the server and knows how to kick off the render and knows how to do the motion tracking. And these people, you know, the people here today probably fall into that category. You're freaking brilliant at so many things, but not really at that genius level. And I had one owner today that said, my problem is everybody on my team says, well, no, don't delegate that to me because you're much better than me at that. And then it was like, we went down the list and everything was in that category of, oh, I'm excellent at this, so therefore I don't have anybody I can delegate it to.
That's exactly why you should delegate it, right? My saying is there's nothing you can break that I can't fix, right? That thought process is, because I know how to fix it, you should totally try to do it. And if something goes wrong, okay, I'm here to fill in the gap. It reminds me of when at Imaginary Forces, we were doing the graphics for, dang, it just came to me, Spielberg movie, dream sequences. Why can't I think of it? Minority Report.
Oh, right, Minority Report.
Yeah, Minority Report. And when the director showed up, when our director showed up on set, there was this big, gigantic Spielberg set, huge, Tom Cruise, you know, like it's real. And Spielberg sits down in a chair and says, the set is yours, guys, go for it. At that point, we're like, I don't know, in our late 20s, early 30s. Like, well, of course, Spielberg directed at 21, so we were old compared to him or whatever. But there was this moment where you realize, like, oh, a person with true genius, true ability knows, no, I'm here for you, but what you do, I can't do. So let's have you do what you do. I'll sit here and I'll be here too. And that's exactly the moment of like, of course, I'm good at it. You should give it a shot because I'm here with you. That's where the rubber hits the road.
Well, for anyone that hears that and says, oh my God, the little maybe tip or trick is once you figure out these, I should be focused on these genius things. I should be delegating all this other stuff. Just start small. Like it's the old principle of he who is faithful in little is faithful in much.
Yeah, like much will be given on to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you give your team the small thing, and sometimes you even set them up to fail, because in failing, that's how they learn. None of us learn when we succeed. Yay, it all went great. No, you set them up knowing they're going to fail, because then they really lock it in. They really learn it when the stakes are small. That way, when the stakes are big, you know they've got it.
Yeah, I love that principle. And that's the opportunity we have. So, okay, so let's focus again, Joel. How do we conclude this conversation? Well, it's funny when you have the word focus in a title, all of a sudden you really feel responsibility for focus.
The bar is high. Yeah. Well, we'll just say this. It's a common challenge that everyone's facing. If this conversation resonates with you, I would say, look, take it into the community where, I don't know, there's not quite 400 or 500 owners that are there processing that and billing, right? And payroll and all these other questions, pitching, all that. So lean into your peers. And of course, Tim, you and I soon will be in New York. So we'll be seeing some of the people that are here and hopefully be doing a dinner, and we'll continue the community there. And this is how we're going to make like the industry stronger. We all do this together, and we're all learning together, and we're all facing the same problems together.
Yeah. And all admitting that we have the problem so we can get them solved together. That's really great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if you don't know it, we love you all. Thanks for joining us today. We do exist so that you can thrive in your business and your life and your career. So we thank you for being part of our Thursdays on a week-by-week basis and being part of our own personal journeys. And thanks for appreciating us and forgiving us for our own faults when we're not quite delegating everything we should be doing too.
That's right. All right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week, or we'll see you between now and then in the community.
Thanks.